Hey everybody, welcome back to Working Out the Kinks, the podcast with Tosh the Doula. Today we're speaking with Enjoli Ford and we're going to talk about therapy. So why don't you give us a nice little introduction?
Okay, my name is Enjoli Ford. I was born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana, and I still reside in Louisiana. I am a licensed professional counselor and the founder of the Elements of Freedom LLC, counseling services. So I have been in counseling since 2015, where I graduated from Nicholls State University. And now I am continuing to serve my community.
That's such a great introduction. And thank you for that. Like, I'm actually like so stoked to see everything you're about to do. Y'all don't know, we went to high school together. So like I've known her for a very, very long time. And it's always great to see like growth in like people who you know. So I'm here for it. And thank you for reaching out to our community because it's desperately needed. That being said, I actually got some questions. I'm just going to throw your way. So my first question is, personally, why do you believe African Americans can benefit from therapy?
So with African Americans, we know that we have been through a lot. We are still going through a lot. And unfortunately, there will be a lot of things that we continue to experience. So if you think about it, when was the last time you remember a day without something tragic or racist or discriminatory happening? Right. So I feel like African Americans are in this constant state of holding it together.
Right.
And not only from the outside, when we look inner in the households, in the workplace, mentally, physically. So on top of all of that, and then having to fight with generational cycles, I feel like African Americans can greatly benefit from therapy so that we can learn how to properly handle the things that go on with us without having to feel like we have to deal with it ourselves.
And I think that's so true. I'm just going to put that out there. Enjoli is not my personal therapist, but I do go to therapy. I just want to make sure that's being stated. But, you know, even just saying that, I've definitely had moments in my life where I would like have like this small little breakdown and it would last like 10 to 15 seconds. And then I just take like this deep inhale. I'm just like, okay, you got to get it back together. You can't do this right now. And it's just like, well, when can you do it?
When can you?
When can you? And I think that's important because, you know, it's not fair that it seems like we always have to hold it together while everybody else get to have that grace to just let go.
You're right.
You know?
I agree.
So that being said, I know you mentioned generational cycle. Do you believe we hold on to like generational trauma?
So the crazy thing is, I've read books on this. And, you know, a lot of times I like to go to the experts because I can think one thing and then not be that. But when it comes to books, I've read The Body Keeps Score, and I've also read It Didn't Start With You. And reading those books were like an eye-opening moment for me. It's embedded in our DNA back 3 generations. So when it comes to trauma actually reshapes our DNA, and it's not a good thing for us. On top of those generational cycles, how people handle stress, how they pass it on to their kids, how kids handle stress. So when we look at families who suffer from depression, suffer from suicide, alcoholism. It's not a coincidence. It's because those are that family pattern of not knowing how to deal with certain things. So they find negative coping mechanisms to deal with it. And it continues on unless somebody sees, hey, this is traumatic. This is not normal. How can I fix this?
Right. And I think that's interesting that you said 3 generations because, you know, that would be what our grandparents. And, you know, if it's us, then like our parents, I guess our grandparents would be that 3rd generation, at least from our standpoint. And when you think about it, like, I don't remember really seeing my grandparents really sit down often, you know?
Yeah.
They were always working or doing something. you're cleaning up your house, or you're doing something for the church, or, you have to work. Like, there's always something going on. You're like, it was never a break. And then you see your parents, and at least for my parents, I can say that, my dad he still is working, has been working since he was 16 years old. Yes. And I think there's also this thing where I feel they're taught that if you are to relax, you feel guilty for sitting down and stopping. And I'm just like, you can't do that. And I'm hoping with our generation that we can start seeing that change.
Yeah. So a lot of times when I look at those generational cycles, right, we have our parents who are workaholics, and in some sense they had to be that way because they had to provide. But even in their old age, like probably our parents now, they continue to work because that's what they're used to. They're used to having to fulfill that spare time, and if you relax, it's like, oh, I could be doing something. And so, and then you look at us, and I'm so happy now that this generation is coming about in a way that F that job. Yes. I'm going to take that vacation. If I don't get this time off, I'm on a flight. So I like seeing those memes because it's like, no, for real, you have to be able to relax and appreciate the time that you have to do those things. And unfortunately, some people, because of those generational cycles, they don't know why they're dealing with that anxiety or that guilt. It's like, oh, I have to do something. I really don't have to do something. Like today is my free day, but I will do something because it suits me. And so when we look at that anxiety, a lot of times it comes from that generational cycle of working.
Wow. It's insane just when you put it into, context, the fact that it is ingrained into our DNA. That being said, what are the steps that we can take to let go of some of that trauma? Because I do think when it comes to our generation, we're starting to, I hate the term woke or become awakened or something. I just think that we're starting to look around because we have internet, we have internet access. We see what other people are doing. We're working with other different, racial groups, and, oh, I'm going to take 2 weeks off to go to where, a different state, or I'm going out this country. And it's like, how are you able to do this? And how do you not feel bad about doing this? Like, that's just my personal experience. So I feel like across the board, like we're starting to ask these questions and like, how do we fix ourselves?
So, and even with that, like the thought process, thinking about it. Okay, if I go on this vacation, what's the worst that could happen? I have a job. I have the days. When I come back, I can just jump back into it. A lot of times we don't think about, I guess, the long run. We just think about, shit's going to burn down if I leave. Nothing's going to function. But the truth is, it will function. So when we look at trauma and even looking at the generational cycles and things like that, trauma is sneaky. A lot of times people don't even know that they have experienced trauma or they are experiencing trauma. And so trauma is an event that causes severe fear or lack of safety. So many times people's behavior come off as personality. That's just my personality. That's just who I am. But deep down, repressed is trauma. And so our body tries to protect us in a way by either creating coping mechanisms that are not healthy or just 100%, not 100%, but regressing that trauma, making it disappear. And then when there are triggers, then it's like, oh, what is going on? I have no idea what's going on because my body has kind of put it on a back burner. So in order to address the trauma is to be aware of it or to start questioning some of those behaviors. Why do I react this way? If I don't know why I react this way, let me reach out to somebody who can help me connect some of those dots. So a therapist, And if you're not ready for a therapist, maybe a social group. And the good thing about COVID now is that a lot of groups are online.
That's
And
always
so,
great.
right? So you can just log on to whatever website it is and sit in on these groups, listen. There are groups that you can join on Facebook, just to get an idea. And so once you feel like you're ready, hey, let's go a little bit deeper to address some of these behaviors.
Yeah, and I will say, I have telehealth. I use teletherapy, and I have to admit, I know how I am as a person, which is why I wanted to do this topic. Is that if I had to drive to my appointment, and I know that's so terrible, I wouldn't probably put as much effort into it. But at this point, it's virtual, so I kind of don't have an excuse. I can sit in my bathrobe and just talk to her on like my phone, and I mean she can't see that I'm in my bathrobe, but I know I'm in my bath. So so it's kind of like you don't really have too much of an excuse at this point once you're ready to like reach out. Like me personally, I felt like I had really just hit this wall when it's just like every 5 seconds I just felt overwhelmed, and I felt so overwhelmed, like with it was, we're in the pandemic, everyone's all in the house. There's all these different personalities. And I think the reason why I was able to like put it aside for so long is because I had a job, which I mean, I'm not saying that my job is like, the bee's knees, but it was my escape from different personalities. Right. So, you have that escape. I was able to go to the gym. The gym is like my personal me time. I couldn't go to the gym anymore for that hour just to have a break from reality, if you will. So, not having all these different things, it started to just build up and build up and build up. And then finally I was just like, I can't take it anymore. And I had a friend just look at me and say, are you okay? And I was like, no, I'm not okay. And, and that's when, and then I was just like, okay, I need help. And, I went to school and actually have like a degree in psychology, and even knowing all of these things, I still had like this, well, not me. And the thing is, yes, it is you need help. If you need help, don't be afraid to reach out. Like if you need it, get it,
100%, because it's great to have an unbiased opinion.
Yes.
It's different going to your home, girl, look what's happening, and your girl like, well, she knows you, or she thinks she knows you. And it's just not what you need. And so if you go to a professional who is unbiased, who can be honest with you, who can challenge those thoughts that you have, and not have to worry about, okay, you might get upset, but at the end of the day, look, we're working on these things for you, for your benefit, So it's great to have somebody to talk to. And even if a session you're not working on anything, it's still progress.
Yeah, it's always progress. So just one quick question. I know you use the term regression. Just for people who may not know what that means, can you just give like a really quick definition?
So regression is like when you are, you know what? I misuse now that I think about it. I say regress instead of repress.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm like, regression is like when you get to a milestone and then you go back, kind of like a baby walking and then they're going back to crawling. But repression is when you when your brain kind of makes that information disappear.
So you just put it in a little box and throw it away.
Yeah.
There we go.
But it's still there.
It's still there. It's just in a box somewhere.
Right. Sorry about that.
No, it's perfectly fine. We're human. We're all human. We doing human things. So this is a big question for me. Do you think the stigma of mental illness in the Black community is going away?
Yes, I do think the stigma in in the Black community is going away, because I am seeing more Black men come into counseling. And Black women, we're gonna do what we need to do. Right. But when it comes to Black men, apparently there's been an uptick in Black men since Kendrick Lamar released his new, was it Kendrick? Yeah, Kendrick Lamar released a new album. And on that, he talked about mental health. And then so now there are Black men who are seeking mental health thanks to that. But as far as the stigma, I think we are learning that a lot of the things that we have experienced was actually not okay.
Right.
And we understand that our parents tried to do, the best that they could with the information that we had, but it still affected us in a way.
Right.
And so now that more and more Black people are talking about mental illness, I think it's giving people a better picture of what it means. So yes, yes.
And that's I'm really seeing that more often, actually. At least like I've seen some people, especially like people who go to church. There's always like you pray for things, and that's fine. But I'm starting to see more in that community. People go, you can pray but still get the therapy. You can do both. You can definitely do both.
Exactly.
And that makes me happy, just because I'm just like, for so long people kind of just like push that help, and because you tell people to just pray and things will get better, you start to think, well, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm not praying hard enough, or I'm doing something wrong. So it makes me so happy that people are starting to get away from that mindset and realize you can do both, and it's okay. Exactly. I always felt, if God created the church, God also created the doctors to help you.
100%.
Created therapists, the counselors, the social workers, created them all.
I agree. And I often go back to, you have to do the work. You have to do the work, because yes, I believe in prayer. I believe in faith. But if I'm praying and there are people out there, like you say, God created the doctors. If something's wrong, I'm going to the doctor. They have the education in order to help me. So if I'm mentally incapable, I'm going to go to a therapist who has the information, who have the resources and the education to help me get to the bottom line. And we can still thank God, and we can still pray at sessions if that's what you need. But we are also going to work on the things that are causing that trouble.
Yeah, I always supposed to forget that phrase. So I was like, had to look it up. And I say phrase, but please don't at me, y'all. I know that's a verse. I know it's a verse. Don't at me. But is it faith without work is dead?
Yes.
And I think that's in all regards. I'm like, you have to do the work to get past certain situations. And I at this point, I meditate now. I still pray, but sometimes it is hard to hear certain things about myself. And you have to kind of humble yourself and let that ego go and realize this is why you're hurting for certain situations. You accept it, and even acceptance is kind of part of that work.
100%.
So once you get to that point, you go, okay. And then you reach that acceptance, and then you move on to the next thing. And then you start to feel so much freer with yourself.
100%. You open that cage door. It's like stepping out into a new person. You can always reinvent yourself. You don't have to be the person that you are today, tomorrow. If it's not benefiting you.
What would you like to see happen with our country and how mental illness is being handled?
So this country. It's so much. Like, where do you start? You start at the divide, you start at the culture, you start at the individual. Where do you start? Because different places need different things. Different groups need different things. Different individuals need different things. First, we have to have the resources, because if you don't have the resources, how do you tackle it? If you continue to take away the mental health facilities, if you continue to make it hard for people to get counseling, how do you fix it? So for me, I want to see the church continue to push the people in the church to seek counseling. I want to see the church continue to help fund these things, because church is about community. And all communities don't have the resources in order to afford counseling.
Right.
Culturally, suicide for Black men is increasing. Historically, we know among the indigenous community, they've been the highest. And then white men were second. And now Black men, the suicide rate, the depression rate is increasing. And I'm sure it's because of the many factors that we have already mentioned. So when I look at groups, when I look at the Black community, when I look at the lack of resources, money, therapists who are Black, culturally competent, I look at those things for our group of people. When I look at other groups of people, I look at, say, white men. A lot of times white men have troubles with depression because of the lack of being able to provide, not being accountable, different things. So, where do you start?
Yeah.
Where do you?
It's so much to even unravel, and just even the statement you just said, there's so much. It's completely overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. It is.
It's so much.
But the first thing is to say we have a problem. We have a problem. And it's not just one group of people who has this problem. It's multiple groups. So
yeah. And this is one thing even you mentioned, just like the fact that we need more Black therapists. I won't lie, I would have given someone of a different race a chance. Mm-hmm. However, my first pick was like, I want a Black woman. I want a Black woman because I personally felt I needed somebody who understands my life. Like, yes. I'm not just Black, I'm also a woman. And those are two different battles that we face every single day. So I was like, I need somebody who understands me. I need somebody, if I say something, there's not like this cultural like misunderstanding, miscommunication. Because I'm not saying that someone who is of a different race cannot help you in therapy, because they definitely can. But there's sometimes like a deeper connection when someone is of your race, because they understand, because they go through it themselves.
Exactly.
So
they have a front row seat to it. It's not just hearsay or what was read, or it's like, like they can relate. And sometimes therapists choose to disclose similarities, while working. And sometimes that connection helps build a deeper connection for the client and the clinician.
Yeah, definitely is a better sense of trust. Because like, oh, okay, you can relate to this because you may have a similar situation or a similar experience. So it's like, okay, you get it. So I know I can let that guard down just a little bit more with you.
Right.
And that's just, I think, why I needed that. And I'm happy that I have that.
You same.
I'm happy about that. So my last question is definitely a tough one, as we are dealing with our country and like the different multiple shootings. And even since this incident, I believe there was still 8 more shootings since the Uvalde, Texas elementary shooting. So just what are your thoughts in regarding these recent shootings? And the reason why I bring that up is because there have been the use of mental illness, I feel like, as a scapegoat. So I just want to know, do you feel that the attentions of the media doing that, is that just to kind of excuse what happened? Do you think that, these are people who actually have mental illnesses? Like, I mean, we don't know any of these people personally, but just personal thoughts on it.
Right. And as you said, the media has a way of justifying mental illness for certain groups, usually white men.
Yes.
But never look at the things Black people experience from the world socially and environmentally, which also causes trauma and mental illness. And so when I look at these shootings, a lot of times which are white men, the random shootings, my thoughts is pretty much the same that they have been the past 20 years. You know, the government has the power. They have power to limit weapons. They have power to mandate security systems for school. They have the money. They have technology to know who's saying what, who's buying what, you know, locations of people. And for whatever reason, they choose to allow these things to continue to happen. And I'm sure it's because of political funding. A lot of these people get money from NRA, right, and how they would never go against some of these organizations because they want to remain wealthy. So when it comes to the shooters, I feel like a lot of times it's resentment. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to link that to mental illness because we know people have mental illness, but majority of these people are not out here committing crimes.
Right.
You know, right. So it's a cop-out. It's a cop-out. I think it's resentment for whatever reason, a tantrum. I think it's a tantrum in a larger scheme.
Scale.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I guess in my head, you know, I sometimes get lost for words in situations like this, mm-hmm, just because it's like, I truly just don't understand it. And, you know, I have people in my life quite personally who have mental illnesses. And, mm-hmm, you know, a lot of times when they deal with depression, you know, a lot of times they kind of want to take it out on themselves.
Yes.
They like never, ever want to like hurt other people. I think, mm-hmm, the reason why this person doesn't do certain things is because if they were to self-harm, it would hurt the people surrounding them.
Right.
And that's kind of the reason why I feel this person does not.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I have never heard, oh, I'm going to do XYZ to a completely different group of people, especially a group of people who I don't even know.
Right.
So that's why I'm always so confused by that thought process of, oh, this person has been suffering from depression, or this person has like some sort of mental illness. And I think that's also why there's such a stigma of mental illness, because of you using it on these people who are doing the bad things.
Right. Yeah.
You don't want to be associated with these people who are doing exactly the bad things. So you like, oh, I don't have this problem.
Right. The way that we define words, the way that we define crazy, you know, in the past it was like, oh, he got a problem. You don't know exactly what the problem is, but you know that things might get real, right, you know, at certain points. But I agree. Like a lot of times, random people, like that is hateful.
I can't imagine the type of hate in your heart you have to do something like that.
I agree. And then, yeah, my thoughts 20 years later, and we have not found a solution.
Right. Even when you really think about it, like I remember the first shooting I remember was Columbine, and that was in 99. I was 10 when it happened. I was in the 5th grade. I remember that. And I know there was this list going around social media of all the school shootings, and they had some even before Columbine. And it's like the list was just so long. I was just like, that even the list was overwhelming. But it's even interesting that you said like you have to be careful how you use words like crazy, mm-hmm, stuff like that. My dad taught me that a long time ago. You have to be careful when you call someone stupid, or you have to be careful when you call someone crazy, because you never know what's really going on in that world. You have to be careful about using certain words.
100%.
I didn't get it then, but I get it now.
Yeah. And then people go through stuff, you know, and mm-hmm, not being able to productively deal with these things can cause anybody to become angry. Mm-hmm. And so I would assume if we looked at these shooters' history of how they handled anger, and how their caregivers, I guess, held them accountable, how their caregivers nurtured them
If they
when
were
they
held
were.
accountable.
Yeah. I feel like we would start to see some connections, because I heard the interview of, I want to say, the mom, and she was like, forgive him. He was going through something. And that right then and there told me, or gave me the assumption that she was used to that anger, but it had never escalated to that point.
Right.
Because he was going through something. And whatever it is he was going through, or had gone through in the past, I bet it dealt with violence. I can almost assure you that it was violent. And he was never held accountable for that.
Right. And you can't excuse something to that extent. You just can't.
No, I wouldn't.
I wouldn't. So what was the name of those two books you mentioned earlier? Because you mentioned two books.
Yes, ma'am. The Body Keeps Score.
Mm-hmm.
And It Didn't Start With You. And so it goes deep. One of them goes deep into the genetic makes, and then the other one kind of tells stories of people and how they dealt with things at certain points of their life and didn't know why it was going on. But when they look back at like genograms, they found out that people in previous generations had actually experienced the similar happenings. So it was mind-blowing.
So y'all can't see me, but I definitely just wrote that down. I'm gonna go check that out. Cause it sounds like it's kind of like that eye opener to like, oh, this is why I behave this way. This is why my grandparents did what they did. Like, yes, I'm gonna go write that down.
Yeah. But and if you don't like to read, if you drive a lot, download the audio because it's in the apps.
Oh, so if I go to Audible, both those books are on Audible?
I listen to it on Libby because if you have a library card, New Orleans library card, you can use your library card. And New York allows, I want to say everybody, or at least kids, to sign up for library cards so that they have access to books now. So I would assume you would be able to use that library card for audiobooks also.
Do you know if they can do this online?
100%. Yep. That's why they created it. That's why they created it, to give people and kids the access to this information.
Oh, she came with a nugget at the end. She came with a gem.
I'm all about those resources.
We need resources, and books, such a great resource. Like, look, I love TV, but there's something about a good book. Okay.
Yes.
There's something about a good book. And that's really, really important, especially since it is the summer. Y'all grab a book while y'all take these vacations. It can be helpful. You need a mental break, but you know, a physical break and a mental break. So let's do it.
I love me.
I'm here for it. Thank you for your time.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me. I was so excited.
I had to. I was like, look at her. First of all, stepping out and starting your own private practice. That is amazing. It's scary, but it's good.
Yes, I feel free now. Like, to be able to work for myself, and then to be able to reach the people that I want to reach, and then in the future, like I just have so many visions. I'm most likely going to be working with a nonprofit soon to have group classes for the community. And then my overall goal is just to have a community center that offers so many resources to families, because we have to take New Orleans back.
Oh, you telling? We're going to have to talk outside of here, because you just said something that I need to run by you.
Yes. Okay.
No, I'm serious. I'm gonna message you right after this. Because you're so right. We gotta take our city back. You know, like we can't leave this into the hands of the politicians, because I'm pretty sure anybody Google right now, you see what's going on in our city, and this is not the city we grew up in.
Not at all.
It's not like, look, we were trusted as kids to go catch the RTA by ourselves, we were trusted to be kind to adults because we knew better.
Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. No cussing in front of them.
No cursing in front of them. You don't know who know anybody in this city. Your mama know everybody. My daddy knew everybody in this.
Right.
So you never know who knows who. Your teacher know your parents. Like, it's different these days. And
it is.
And it goes, honestly, complete sidebar. It all kind of started with Katrina.
Yeah, it is.
It truly did. And it's been long enough. The kids of Katrina are now adults now. So now we have to do the things that we need to do to get our city back.
Amen. I agree with that. Agreed with that. But thank you again. I can't wait to see all the great things that you continue to complete and do. And I can't wait to listen to these other podcasts.
Episodes.
These episodes, yes.
It's great. It's been a long time coming. I had to figure it out, but I think I finally got it. So again, thank you. I'm pretty sure we're going to meet up again. And thank you for your time. Y'all, thank you for listening. If you stayed towards the end, I really appreciate it. I hope you go listen to those books or read those books as well. Grab yourself a library card. Apparently you can get free books. We're here for it. All right. Y'all have a good day. Thanks. Bye.